And to what? What did he change it to?
To it's not ready for prime time. Period. Regardless of age, it doesn't serve in the same.
He said it with great. I don't want to misinterpret what he said. He said it with great hesitancy. He goes, "I can understand if they made it available for people that were."
But we've had very good talks with Russia, and we've had very good talks with Ukraine, and we think it maybe will come to an end and we'll stop killing young people all over the battlefield and elsewhere.
On Europe, so do you plan to maintain having a presence in Europe in the long term, like tens of thousands of troops?
We'll be involved. We'll be involved in Europe. We're involved in Europe now. Europe is our friend. They take advantage of us on trade. We don't like that. What the EU does, we don't like that. But we'll solve that the old-fashioned way. We'll give them the same reciprocal numbers. We're talking about a reciprocal tax. You know that. And if they charge us, we charge them. Right now, they charge us much, much more than we charge them. And they have non-monetary taxes also and tariffs. And we're going to change that. It's all changing. We're not going to be the people that we were. We had people in this office sitting right at this desk or another model of this desk. Because as you know, the other desk is right now being refurbished. No, not that I know of. No, Steve. And the Middle East has been great. Saudi Arabia has treated us really well. They really have. I think Qatar has treated us very well too. They want to get that whole mess ended in the Middle East. We don't even talk about that anymore. You guys haven't asked one question about the Middle East, but the Middle East seems to be doing relatively well.
I asked about the Middle East. For months, even before you were elected in November, you've spoken about your desire to free all of those hostages that have been held by Hamas. That's not true. And just a few weeks ago, we gave an ultimatum. We said if they're not all released by noon on February the 15th, they're being held to pay. Is Hamas thumbing their nose at your team president?
No, I think the opposite. So, as you know, they weren't going to release any more hostages. And I said there's going to be hell to pay. And then they agreed that they were going to release the hostages that they had agreed to release, plus an extra one. And so that you could say that was a big difference. But I said it from that point, it's up to Bibi, Netanyahu, and Israel. I may have taken a different stance. But they did release, they went back to releasing the hostages. But if you remember, they said we weren't going to release any. They've totally ended it. And I said, well, they're not going to release any. They'll be held to pay. And but the rest is really up to him. What I may have done it differently than him. It's not my decision. It's his decision. But they did release all of those hostages.
So. When you spoke to Vladimir Putin, did you raise or did you discuss at all the possibility of a minerals deal on the Ukrainian land that Russia now controls?
I didn't discuss it. I'd like to buy minerals on Russian land too, if we can. The rare earth. They have very good rare earth also. They both do. I would say that. And oil and gas. Look, it's a great thing. If we sell this, it's great for Russia too. Because we could do deals there. They have very valuable land that isn't utilized. So something like that could take place. Yeah. No, we haven't lifted any sanctions on anyone.
AP struggling. They're mad that they got kicked out of the Oval Office.
Well, I guess it will be at some point, but right now. Yeah, possibly. Hey, I know some Russian oligarchs that are very nice people. It's possible. They're not quite as wealthy as they used to be. They're not as wealthy as they used to be. I think they can afford. $5 million. No, a lot of people are going to want to. A lot of people are going to want to be in this country, and they'll be able to work and provide jobs and build companies and pay taxes. All of those things. It's an incredible. It's an incredible thing. I mean, this is the group that is the first to hear it. Nobody's heard about it. Nobody ever thought about it. But we've been thinking about it very, very strongly over the last week. And I was going to announce it sometime next week, and I figured, why not? We have a lot of cameras blazing right now. We might as well do it now. We'll have Caroline announce it the next time. No, it's a great thing. The gold card. Remember the words. The gold card. somebody said, "Can we call it the Trump gold card?" I said, "If it helps, use the name Trump. I'll give it to you for free."
I like it. So, you probably just launched 10,000 stores. So, you want to elaborate a little bit more on what Russian oligarchs you know?
I know. Isn't it interesting how many stories we do tell? And they all turn out to be true, and they all turn out to be ultimately correct. Right? Trump was right about everything. Do you have one of those Trump was right about everything hats? I'm going to give it to this gentleman. Give me one of them.
But they're all going to be vetted. Everybody who comes in gets vetted. Okay, they get vetted. So you gotta, we're going to begin in 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. The sale will start in about 2 weeks. I hope so. I mean, look, I think that we want to get that country back on its feet. Right now, it's been destroyed. It's sold out here. Give me all of them. Look,
Take that and print it.
Trump was right about everything. Just came in. Somebody sent. I said, this was sent in by a fan. I said, I think we should make some of them. But we were. What you want? Are you allowed to take one? Because he'll consider it. I know. Bit of a stiff. Brian, you're not a stiff. You're sort of a stiff guy. He'll take other things, but not a free hand.
Always say yes to the president. Always say yes to the
Would
president.
anybody like one? Who do you work for? Who? Yeah, who are you?
Let me ask you an easy question, Mr. President. The Philadelphia Eagles on the Super Bowl. Are they being extended an invitation?
They will be. We haven't yet, but we will be. I thought it was a great performance by them, and absolutely they'll be extended that invitation. Would you do that right away? By the way, we'll do it right away. We're going to do it sometime today, and they deserve to be down here. And, we hope to see them. We have a lot of teams. We just had the great hockey team, as you know, Florida come here. We have many of the great athletes come that win things. Well, they have to get together. They've had a lot of discussion back and forth. They both are meaning well, and the deal will ultimately happen. I think it'll happen pretty quick. It'll be nice to see the golfers. The best golfers be able to play against each other, just to help expedite it. I don't get anything out of it. If I can help them work it out, I just think golf. It's very much of an individual sport, and you want to see the best players playing against each other, not playing in two different locations.
What's going to be more challenging, a PGA Live deal or Russia-Ukraine deal?
I think the PGA deal is much more challenging. Well, it's a movement up there that a lot of people are concerned about. And there's been a lot of Israeli movement up there for a reason. All of a sudden, maybe they're not feeling so good about that. So that'd be terrible. I hope that doesn't happen. But there is movement up there that nobody knew about. Right? You know that, right? I'm concerned about everything. I want the world to be peaceful. When I left here, we had no war. We had defeated ISIS in less than 4 weeks. In fact, I took the general that defeated ISIS and I put him in charge of the whole ball game because that's what we want. We want winners. Raisin Cane, Raisin. And when I heard that name, I said, I like that name. That's the kind of general I like. So we'll see. But he was great. He's a great soldier, not a politician, a soldier, a real soldier. You know that, Brian. This guy was. This guy's the real deal. And I think he's going to do a great job. But think of it, we had no wars, we had no problems, we had no inflation, we had no problems. And then all of a sudden you have October 7th in Israel, which was horrible. And then you see what happened with Ukraine. Russia would have never gone in. if the election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. The 2020 election was rigged, and we got out of it. And you see what happened. You see what happened to our country. Inflation, Afghanistan, that horrible withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think when Russia saw what happened in Afghanistan, they said, well,
I don't know what's going on. Locals is wigging out on me here. Locals is wigging out on me here.
just deeper. I had some people that I didn't really like too much in my cabinet, but I didn't know Washington then. But I was a New York person. I knew New York intimately, but I had to rely on people. I had great people. Look, we got the biggest tax cuts in history. I rebuilt the military. I mean, we did so much. We did unbelievable. Even right to try. Somebody was saying today they were saved by right to try. We did right to try medically. We did transparency medically. That was a big thing, but Biden canceled that one. He didn't cancel right to try, which is interesting. He didn't cancel Space Force. He was going to cancel Space Force. Space Force is turning out to be invaluable, amazing. We created Space Force. But think of it, we rebuilt our entire military, and now we're going to have to patch it up a little bit again because of what's happened. No, this was a grossly incompetent administration. The only thing they were good at was cheating in elections and the weaponization of government. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
What's up? RFK Jr.'s in the house. And okay, that's it. So the feed looks like that was from NBC. We had the AP. They kicked that off for us. We had one order that was signed, and boy, oh boy, was that a big one. In fact, I've got a little reading on that. So Trump came out. That executive order was responding, I believe, to this story exactly, telling us, remember, Jack Smith disclosed that he got a big, fat, whopping, disgusting gift of $140,000. We made a video about this, talked about it whenever the story came out a while ago on Valentine's Day. Yeah, big, fat Valentine's Day gift of 140 G's, which means if I could speculate that it was a lot more than that, okay? I don't know what kind of multiplier you want to give to that. I don't know if it's a 2x multiplier, 3x multiplier, 10x multiplier. They had to, mark down the hard, heavy lifting things, but filed this one. But all of the other hours of research and all the office lock things, they didn't bill for those things. So that number is probably a lot bigger. Okay, so $140,000 is what they reported and what disgusting, illegitimate Jack actually disclosed. Now, it's not clear why Jack got outside legal advice since he was allegedly a special counsel. He wasn't, according to Judge Eileen Camp, federal judge. But remember this story, and remember the law firm that called the law firm out today during this executive order signing. Covington and Burley provided the representation at least $140,000 in so-called pro bono legal services from this prominent Washington law firm. And according to the executive order, they must have some other attorneys in there who are interfacing with the federal government, using their security clearances to get access for what? We don't really know what. And Jack Smith, as we know, is illegitimate and never should have been prosecuting Trump in the first place. All orchestrated by the Democrats, Joe Biden's White House and Attorney General. Covington and Burlington provided representation. A spokesperson for Covington declined to comment. Two of the Covington lawyers representing Smith, called Peter Koski and Lanny Brewer, also did not respond to messages. So there you go. We got some names of folks who are definitely losing their license, or their clearance, rather. It's not clear precisely why Smith sought outside legal advice, but Trump repeatedly railed against Smith. So he said, right, maybe they should be investigated for breaking the law and abusing their office. first reported by the Wall Street Journal, no pardon was issued for them. Smith has ties to several prominent lawyers at Covington, the law firm with the largest presence in D.C. Wow, such a big firm. Brewer, Covington's vice chair, served as head of the Justice Department's criminal division from 2009 to 2013, and recruited Smith to take the pivotal role of the chief of the department public intelligence. Brewer has repeatedly defended Smith in interviews. Jack's not political at all. He's straight down the middle. Yeah, right. Covington is also home to a number of other prominent Justice Department officials. Look who else lives there. Barack Obama's first Attorney General, Eric Holder. Yeah. Another Covington partner is called Alan Feingrad, U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of New York. During part of Smith's tenure, the Justice Department appears to have approved Smith's request under a regulation issued in 2023 that allows government employees to set up legal defense funds, or take such services for free if it's related to their current work. So maybe that's what it's for. So this law firm, in other words, was representing a government worker called Jack Smith, who was using them to get advice of counsel, essentially, about whether he was engaging in criminal conduct by prosecuting President Trump. Hey, if you're a prosecutor and you have to go get counsel about whether what you're doing is legal or not, here's the tip. Not legal. You shouldn't be doing that thing. If it's borderline, no. I mean, I might go to jail if I prosecute the president. Why? Because you made up evidence and fabricated search warrants and used this evidence to show this evidence and all this other stuff. Like, for example, one of Jack Smith's lawyers called Jay Bratt impliedly threatening defense counsel. Hey, you should get your client to flip and go against Trump. Otherwise, you're not going to get that judgeship position you want, defense lawyer Stanley Woodward. That type of stuff, is that what he's talking about? Because they're putting pressure to make their case? It's criminal behavior, and he's going to lawyer up for it. And he got 140 G's for it, at least, probably many times more than that. So these lawyers now just got by Donald Trump, the president of the United States, who the American people reelected unequivocally to end this garbage. So shout out to them. We're excited to see that happen. Lots of good stuff there. And that's a fun way to start the day. Now, we've also got some other stuff that is just hot today, including a senator's wife. Whoa, big one. A senator's wife exposed in the government grift. You know who this guy is. Sheldon Whitehouse, a senator for Rhode Island, somebody who has been accused of being a racist because he has close associates who attend mostly white or all white clubs in his home state. Now, what happened in today's story is that an agency called FACT, F-A-C-T, the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, has now busted him. Says, oh, buddy boy, your wife's so-called Ocean Conservancy group has been getting a lot of money, and maybe you shouldn't have voted on legislation that would fund her because you're a senator. And so this is the story from them. They sent a full letter on it, but this got published today. Said, yesterday, the nonpartisan ethics watchdog called the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, called FACT, filed a complaint requesting the Senate's ethics in the Congress investigate and take appropriate action on Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. He appears to have violated the Senate ethics rules on conflicts of interest by advocating and voting for legislation as a senator that resulted in nearly $7 million being paid in the fall of 2024. It's like 1/4 of the year, $7 million to the organization his wife works for. Incredible. Now, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's wife, called Sandra Whitehouse, who has a whole story of her own, as we've talked about here before, we've pointed out that Whitehouse has come under criticism for being a member of a whites-only beach club. He says, no, I'm not a member, people say, well, is your wife, you're like a guest of your wife? Okay, so you're not a member, but is that just because you have somebody else covering for your membership? Here was this story published in 2021, if you recall. White House denied on Wednesday the member of an exclusive Newport Beach club, Newport Beach, very white, accused and insisted that the organization does have non-white members. Like, nuh-uh, there's one black guy, I think he's black maybe. In a lengthy statement, White House said that he would not ask his wife or any of his other relatives who hold membership at the Bailey's Beach Club to resign for two reasons. He said, well, first, they are on the right side of pushing for improvements. You know, they're members of this white club, but like they want other minorities to be here. So it's okay because they're not racist in the racist club, so they should stay. Second, and more importantly, he said, my relationship with my family is not the only one in which I tell them what to do. While White House has said he has no membership to resign, he did note that he belongs to another local sailing club that does lack diversity. Well, I'm not a member of that racist club. Are you a member of that one? Oh, yeah. That's a sailing club. Were there any black people or anybody else there? No. All right. Though. Failing the sailing club's lack of diversity is squarely on me. I'm a senator, and something for which I am sorry. Now, I commit to working with the club to build a more inclusive membership and to better connect with the local community. So he's not going to go find some minority people out there. It's like, you guys like sailing? Like, not really. Are you sure? Please, you don't want to come? Like, come get on a sailboat or something? White House launched a firestorm last week when he was approached by a reporter who said, are there any minority members of the club now? Said, I think the people who are running the place are still working on that. Sorry, it hasn't happened yet. Like, no, we got no one else here. Just a bunch of white people. Wow. The reporter then characterized the club as all white. He said, should these clubs continue to exist? White House, who is apparently associated with racist houses for whites, says it's a long tradition in Rhode Island. There are many of them. White House answered without challenging the reporter's description. He says, well, we need to work our way through the issues. And then he's like, well, the reporter caught me off guard. I had no idea. He knew I was a member of this racist club. Wasn't prepared for the question. He said, well, I shouldn't have accepted the premise. I checked the assertion, and I was assured the assertion was wrong. There is diversity in the club. I went and checked. But it is a priority. He's like, we do have somebody, right? Like, who do we have? Do we have anybody here? Imagine that conversation. Hey, it's a senator just calling to see if we have anybody here because I want to make sure I'm not racist. Can you please give me the official directory so I can just make sure? It's like, what's the most racist thing ever, right? But in a separate statement to the Providence Journal, Bailey's Beach Club described the all-white characterization as inaccurate and false. Over many years, that many people come, happens all over the place. It's private. We're not going to give you any details about this, but that's what they all hang out with now. So the wife allegedly was associated with that, and he's saying, I'm not going to dictate to her what she can do and where she should go. So this looks like it's the wife. This is Sandra when she was being sworn in, when the husband was being sworn in. Rather, as we see, there's corrupt Joe Biden there, who I don't know if he was more functional then than obviously he is now. Isn't it interesting how he's just totally disappeared? Like Kamala, they give her a shopping cart or whatever in the grocery basket. Here, go out there, run for governor or whatever. Joe, haven't even heard from him. He's just ice creamed up, thrown in a closet somewhere. But this is the wife, Sandra, and so the report from Fact tells us that she has worked for the advocacy group called Ocean Conservancy since 2008. And I've just got told, I like the ocean. I like conserving the ocean. I'm not for like nuking the whales. I have a doubt that this group moves the needle in any real way to conserve the ocean. I just had to speculate. If you went in there and show me what everybody does here all day. How much of the ocean is being conserved? What is your deliverable on this? There's only so much they can do, right? It's a big problem. So anyways, so they're there. So since then, Ocean Conservancy, and you can't challenge these groups because unless you come out as being opposed to conserving the ocean, has been awarded, check it out, 19 government grants worth $14.2 million. It's important to note that nearly half of this $14 million was given to the group in the fall of 2024 alone. Okay, Trump's coming in. Everybody is ransacking the Treasury. It's a disgusting grift. Gobs of money being just siphoned out the door. A $5.2 million grant in September 2024 alone. A $1.7 million grant in December 2024. Senator Whitehouse directly supported and voted for the legislation that led to those grants. Now, in addition to these apparent conflicts, White House has a long history of working on legislation being lobbied for by the organizations tied to his wife. Senate ethics rules prohibit that. They have to disclose when it's a conflict and when it has emerged. Now, we'll come back to Kendra's statement on this, but here is the official letter that got sent into the Senate. The Senate Select Committee on Ethics. Get the following letter from FACT. Shout out to them for digging this one out. To James Langford, chair. You remember him for that event when he was trying to shove down our gullets the border bill that was disgusting. That was going to codify like 4,000 illegals every day. Remember that crap that he tried to do? Anyways, he's getting a letter. Hopefully he does something about this. It says the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, FACT senators, and Coons, remember him? Says is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting accountability, ethics, and transparency in government and civic arenas. We request that the Ethics Committee investigate Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. The ethics committee. Here are the facts. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's wife, called Sandra Whitehouse, has worked for the advocacy group Ocean Conservancy since 2008. According to tax filings, Ocean Conservancy had paid Whitehouse through her consulting firm, which is called Ocean Wonks, LLC. So I'm an Ocean Wonk. Since 2017, and paid her directly prior to that. Somebody's like, you got to set up an LLC for those. So insulate yourself from that with some liability protections. So since 2008, then, Ocean Conservancy has been awarded 19 government grants worth approximately $14.2 million. However, nearly half of this $14 million was given to the group in the fall of 2011, all of which Senator Whitehouse directly voted for. And all of this is being footnoted if you have the following. You can see Sandra Whitehouse, they've got her LinkedIn over there. They say, oh, you work for them? Ocean Wines. Great, your whole company. Thanks for posting it on your LinkedIn. IRS form. They went out, they pulled out the Ocean Conservancy. They showed she got paid some money. USAspending.gov, another one. Oh yeah, Ocean Conservancy got federal grants awarded. Interesting there. More federal grants awarded in fiscal year 2024. All this money coming in, she got paid, and she works for the entity. Now, White House voted on it. Now, in September 2024, Ocean Conservancy received a $5.2 million federal grant from the, quote, National Oceanic Atmosphere Administration, the NOAA, for marine debris cleanup, right? As we always say, what are they actually doing? $5.2 million to remove large debris from U.S. coastal waters. Oh my gosh. So like 5 dudes went out with some of those like trash pokers. About $5 million. I wonder what they did. Actually, I want to click on this one and just see. Oh, hang on a second. We definitely don't want to do that. Let's open this in a new tab and see what we've got here. What did their press release say that they're doing? Okay, so they're going to come out here. Did they hire like construction? Today, we got announced its recommendation of $5.2 million in funding to remove large debris, ghost gear, large fishing net, gear balls, tangled messes. This 4-year grant is going to enable Ocean Conservancy, so it's over 4 years, so $1 million a year, to conduct cleanups and gear removals and implement ghost gear prevention best practices in Alaska, California, and Florida. We're incredibly grateful for this money, we're sure you are. Addressing debris and fishing gear in Alaska is amazing. And by the way, I don't want any debris anywhere on our coastlines. I love nature, I love the coast. There shouldn't be garbage and crap out there. You should always leave your camping site or anything you do in nature better than you found it. That's a good rule to live by. It applies to people too and everything. But the rule is, we want to see people who are getting $5 million actually do things? Are they actually doing things, or is this money just going in to Sheldon Whitehouse's wife's organization's coffers? I don't know. Are there pictures of them with construction gear? Are there crews of hundreds of people going out and cleaning this stuff up? Let me ask this. How many tons of large debris did they clean up and actually remove? Anyone have any idea? I wonder if they report that. Let's see if they do. It says the grant was funded by the Biden administration, obviously, explaining that it was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, a bill White House supported and voted for. In December 2024, Ocean Conservancy also got $1.7 million in federal funds from the EPA to assist with more debris. The grant was funded as part of the EPA annual appropriations bill, which White House also voted for, footnoted again. Now, while these two grants alone appear to be a conflict of interest since they're directly funding his wife, it's even more egregious in the context of Senator Whitehouse's long history of working on legislation being lobbied for by organizations tied to his wife. It's a repetitive pattern. Now, altogether, Ocean Conservancy has spent millions on federal lobbying expenses over the years on issues related to oceans, climate change, environmental cleanup, all those issues that White House stands on. Weird. So it's like that little cycle that we learned in grade school about the rain and the sun and evaporation and the whole, little diagram here. It's the same pattern. You see that White House's wife gets money from the government, then she goes and says, oh, we care about issues. Then White House runs on those issues, and those entities that just got that government money, they fund and support White House because he cares about the same issues that they're funded to care about. It's a disgusting cycle, and around we go. Meanwhile, we're all getting crapped on, and they're getting paid for their campaigns and their issues, right? It's not going to cleaning up tons of garbage out on the ocean and the shorelines. It's to scream about climate change and ocean and the environment. All of that is Democratic money for Democratic issues. The Ocean Conservancy urged Congress to pass the International Maritime Pollution Act, legislation that was introduced by White House. They go into like, wow, this guy's brilliant. He got us $7 million, so he's a genius, so we support his legislation. And all of that money that they use to go raise awareness, to go out and get money from donors or to just build their email list, is all then used to re-support White House. It's total corruption. Ocean Conservancy also advocated and secured billions in funding for coastal restoration projects in the Inflation Reduction Act. White House not only voted for that, but also touted $3 billion in grant funding for ports and coastal restoration among White House-backed measures in the bill. In addition to the Ocean Conservancy, the wife, Sandra Whitehouse, has been paid by other organizations that have lobbied the Senate on legislation as well, right? So it's just the same thing. Same thing that Joe was doing with Hunter, Senator Whitehouse is doing with his wife. Senators, they say, here's the law, buddy. You should have followed the ethics rules and disclosed this. Senate rules broadly prohibit senators from using any official actions that appear to provide a benefit to their spouse. Not allowed to do that. Rule 37 says if you've got a pecuniary interest, no one shall knowingly use their position to further that interest for their immediate family member, anyone affected by your decision. In other words, you can't vote on legislation that's going to make your wife's conservancy get $14 million. Generally, the rules that address this, the fact that a benefit to a senator's spouse does directly benefit the senator, saying the ethics manual is clear. A senator should never use their prestige to give a benefit in what they're working on. Under the ethics manual, you may discipline them for any misconduct which does not directly relate to their official duties. And there's a conflict of interest here, saying White House directly voted for legislation that led to $6.9 million just recently of taxpayer money being paid to an organization for which his wife works and even gets paid. This circular relationship, just like the clouds and the sun, rivers, and the ocean, appears to be directly contrary to the Senate rules. It broadly prohibits senators from doing this. As the Ethics Committee has stated, senators must closely guard against even the appearance that their family or friends are benefiting from them. And even if Senator Whitehouse believes that the federal funds are going to a worthy cause, the fact that a cause is worthy does not negate the duty to ensure compliance with the standards. At least report it, disclose it. This is exactly the type of a case that citizens view as a conflict of interest and leads to distrust that we have for our Congress. And we request the Senate Ethics Committee conduct a full investigation into Senator Whitehouse because at minimum, he has created the appearance of a conflict of interest. So, beautiful letter drafted there. Executive Director, Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, Kendra Arnold, sending that one into the Senate, absolutely busting the very allegedly racist Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and his wife, who's getting rich off the government teat. All right, so good update over there. Now, a couple of short updates on some cases. Let's talk about what's happening with the special counsel and USAID. We'll hit the AP, and then we'll watch some Doge clips. But here is what is happening over from the special counsel's office. And this is just getting to be insane. As you can see, the fired special counsel is now launching an attack inside the Trump administration against the Trump administration because Judge Amy Berman Jackson shoved him back into power. Person responsible for this office currently, according to court order, even though he was fired by Trump immediately, is special counsel so-called Hampton Dellinger. He just posted a statement here. After the judge said he's back in power for at least a little bit of time, he's trying to bring back other people and shove them back in alongside him. He said this, last Friday, Hampton Dellinger filed initial requests to pause other terminations of other probationary employees. Okay, so Hampton Dellinger was fired. A judge shoved him back. Now he's trying to bring back everybody else who was fired, or at least this close group of people, seeking a stay, saying that there are reasonable grounds to believe that agencies fired them illegally.
I got shades on in my
Office of the Special Counsel
sun guard down. It's all good.
Things, but of course, we're going to do that now. And consistent with our practices, we didn't comment. But since now everybody's talking about this stuff, we want you to bring back these employees, and so we're going to make the following statement. So we'll come back to his statement. But here is what they are letting. Here what they're filing. This guy was fired, U.S. Office of Special Counsel, sending this in to the Department of Veteran Affairs. This is a complaint in front of the Merit Systems Protection Board. Remember, it's a unique entity set up for these types of disputes. And this guy was terminated by President Trump. A judge shoved him back in, and now he's filing this stuff on behalf of the government that he got fired from. This is an insurrection of official government position and office called the Office of the Special Counsel. Trump fired this dude. So we can refresh our recollection on who this judge is and what these connections look like, because this case is at the Supreme Court right now. So the mind map is loading for us, and what we can see is it is this case right here, Hampton Dellinger. This is Hunter Biden's former colleague. They went to law school together, worked at a law firm together, and he was fired. Judge Amy Berman Jackson, this Obama-appointed judge in the D.C. District Court, she brought him back on. Now, she scheduled this case.
I don't know. There's still a lot of people that aren't happy about some of the things he said about Trump when he was running. So we'll see how it goes. It can't be any worse than the current one we got. He's a fucking straight up rhino.
Do anything until after this preliminary injunction hearing coming up here as well. But Hampton is now submitting this because Amy Berman Jackson shoved him back in and said the Office of the Special Counsel requests that they stay the probationary termination of former federal employees. Actually, one right here, former federal employee blank, saying the office requests this stay with other requests for these other people. Okay, so let's bring all of these people back. This guy was fired. He has no right to bring these people back or to file these claims. His power as a special counsel was terminated by the duly elected president of this country. So wants to bring back this person, wants to bring back this person, wants to bring back this person, and this person, and this person. Collectively, the fired losers. Saying we need to shove them back everywhere. He's trying to retake the government. It's like capture the flag. All these positions were gone. He's trying to bring them back. It says the Office of Special Counsel, that he is not lawfully entitled to, has reasonable grounds to believe the agencies that fired these folks engaged in prohibited personnel practices and now terminating complaints in violation of federal law. And so as a result, OSC has an obligation to request relief from the board where it's appropriate. And that's what they're doing now. So between these days, right, Trump came in, fired everybody. We got to bring him back. This is just a sample of what he has filed. Now, this is happening because the weak, spineless Supreme Court, probably because of Amy Coney Barrett, who said, well, it's not a final appealable order yet, is waiting for the preliminary injunction hearing to happen tomorrow. And so depending on the outcome of that proceeding, this may be moot after the hearing on the preliminary injunction. The judge can say, well, you haven't shown why you should be in this office, and so you're now done. Or you can be in this office more permanently, and so now Trump has an appealable order that he can take directly to the Supreme Court, which should overcome Amy Coney Barrett's objections. The Supreme Court can hear the case and then make some finality with a decision solidifying the unitary executive theory, getting rid of any limitations on the executive branch's ability to fire somebody from the executive branch. That's probably how it's going to go, but we got to wait till tomorrow. Now, in the meantime, this is providing him, Hampton Dellinger, with a blank slate to get in there to do this type of garbage, which is commandeering the office. And as we speculated, shredding emails, cleaning up a bunch of the mess, and usurping the presidential prerogative.
I was watching Crowder earlier. They're talking about how he's going to rename the Cleveland Indians back to the Indians, but it won't be Chief Wahoo.
And so firing probationary employees without
cause
is contrary to a reasonable reading of the law. Okay, this dude is not the president of the country. He's acting like it. It says, and I have a duty to protect the probationary employees. So he's fighting to bring back his six
It's really like Byron Donaldson running for governor of Florida, though.
Now, the Supreme Court, of course, came out and issued this decision. Trump's DOJ was knocking on the door of the Supreme Court saying, every single day that goes by, you are allowing a judge called Amy Berman Jackson to take away the power of the executive branch illegally, unconstitutionally, and against the interest of Americans. And it is a reprehensible offense that should not be allowed to last for a single minute. But the Supreme Court said, we're just going to wait for a couple of days, and we're going to let the lower courts work it out. Trump, of course, was appealing a traditionally non-appealable TRO. They were saying there should be a special exception for the executive branch when the executive branch gets hit with a nationwide TRO from some hack liberal district judge, that he should be able to appeal directly to the Supreme Court, lest we risk a constitutional crisis whereby the executive branch tells the district court to get bent, which does it anyways, without the full weight and power.
No, I mean, I'm not a fan of them, but yeah.
The Supreme Court said no. All right, this matter concerns.
And the reason that they were called the Indians is because their team was the first major league team that had an actual Native American playing for them. So it's ridiculous.
For the District of Columbia. On February 12th, Amy Berman Jackson.
Most Native Americans like that name. A couple of crazy leftist natives didn't.
Providing the Dellinger should be
so they back just like in Washington too.
How sneaky this was from Judge Jackson. She actually said it as an administrative stay.
Redskins is not a derogatory term. They call each other that.
Then she converted that to a TRO. Now we're scheduled for a preliminary injunction. But this entire time, this dude has been in office against Trump's will via Harvard. The district court has scheduled a hearing on that motion on February 26th, the same day the TRO expired, just a month. Pending before this court is the government's application to vacate that, right? Trump came back out through the DOJ and said, it's ridiculous. Dellinger has filed a response. The government filed a response.
And they're not called Indians because Columbus thought he was in India either.
This court typically does not have a
Indios comes from child of God.
In other words, we can't normally hear that at this stage. The government urges us to construe the TRO as a
so even when
that's basically what it is.
Native Americans say we don't, I'm not an Indian, I'm a native. Well, no, technically you're not, because you migrated there too.
Which establishes the jurisdiction of the courts. They say, well, under the All Writs Act, you could do that because the executive power is being
there you go.
By a low-level district judge.
There you go.
Now, in his opposition, Hampton Dellinger repeatedly notes, he says, well, it's going to expire like in 8 days.
That's how it works, though. Squeaky wheels, especially when they're lefties.
So don't worry about this. You don't even have to change all this law or find exceptions or do anything. Just wait. Hampton said it's going to expire on the 26th of calm down. So, of course, probably Tony Barrett, she said, well, in light of the foregoing, the application to vacate the order of Amy Bernie Jackson, who's the district court local judge, for the District of Columbia, presented to John Roberts and by him, is held in abeyance until February 26th, when the TRO is set to expire. So we're going to see what Judge Amy Berman Jackson does. That will be tomorrow. Of course, we're going to be here to cover that. So thanks for subscribing as we do. Now, 2 judges, the liberal judges, Sotomayor and Jackson, would deny the application, meaning they would tell Trump to just get bent. All right, you can't be heard at all. We've got 2 other judges who would dissent from this. We've got Gorsuch and Alito. They say, listen, until recently, Hampton Dellinger served as special counsel. He was the head of the Office of Special Counsel appointed by Biden. Now, that agency oversees the enforcement of various statutes governing the federal workforce. The special counsel is appointed by the president with the advice and consent of the Senate for a 5-year term. So then, on February 7th, the president removed Mr. Dellinger, says the Supreme Court, from office. Dellinger responded and sued the president and other officials, saying, you can't do this. The U.S. Code stops the president from removing him because you can only remove him for due cause. So Dellinger then also sought interim equitable relief, said, shove me back into office while this lawsuit unfolds, rather than suing for back pay or other damages. I'm entitled to my job, and we have speculation as to why. So granting that request, the lower level court did issue a TRO, directing Mr. Dellinger to continue and go back to the office. Over the judge's dissent, a panel of D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals judges said, we can't review a TRO. Sorry, it needs to be from a preliminary injunction, and only from the preliminary injunction can you appeal. The president and other defendants...
I think the Spiders were a Negro League, weren't they?
Supreme Court asking us to hear it. The court instead now holds the application in abeyance.
I'm not a fan of Cleveland, though. I'm a Detroit fan.
If harbors a concern, the TRO may
I know the Detroit's Negro League was the Stars.
Respectfully, says Gorsuch and Alito, I believe that it has, and that each additional day where the order stands only serves to confirm the point, especially now this dude is filing lawsuits on behalf of the Office of the Special Counsel.
Only a few minutes left. I'm almost out there.
Unlike preliminary injunctions, of course, TROs are generally not appealable, but exceptions do exist, and preventing district courts from shielding their orders from appellate review is one of them. And as the dissenting judge, Judge Katz, has said in the lower level court, here there are powerful reasons to look behind the label, to acknowledge this TRO presently acts as a preliminary injunction, and to review its lawfulness. Now, as a starting point, writes Gorsuch, in that review, consider what we know about the remedy that Amy Berman Jackson created, what she cobbled together. The court effectively commanded the president and other executive branch officials to recognize and work with someone whom the president ordered removed and fired. Whether she calls it a TRO, a preliminary injunction, or whatever, that was an equitable remedy.
Busy today. Super busy. That's why I didn't really stream. I did a Rumble only stream all last night with the local scanner on, listening to Toledo.
That solves the problem.
I don't think I got a single view, but that's fine. I needed to go. I needed to get a certain amount of hours in to apply for a partnership. So application went in today.
Under this court's precedents, however, a federal court may issue an equitable remedy.
I should know pretty soon whether or not I got my partnership.
It was a remedy traditionally accorded by courts of equity that were set up for that. The limitation would seem to pose a problem here, okay? For courts of equity at that time of the founding were apparently powerless to restrain an executive officer from making a removal of a subordinate appointee. So in other words, you can't stop the executive branch from firing somebody. You hadn't been able to do it back in the founding era, and that means you can't do it now. No English case involved a bill or an injunction to stop the removal of a municipal officer. Supreme Court case from 1888.
Big taco.
We've had this as
I got up to 50 degrees today, so all the snow's melted.
1888 case. And
A lot of wet.
Denied the power of a
wetness.
Court of equity.
It was raining this morning.
Firings. Given that pattern of restraint by the 1880s, this court considered it well settled that a court of equity had no jurisdiction to stop the removal of a public officer. Now, to be sure, throughout the nation's history, various presidentially appointed officials like Dellinger have contested their removals, and the courts have heard and passed on.
Whoever it was is gone.
But those officials have generally sought remedies like back pay, just go get money, not reinstatement. And he cites two cases that show that. The closest the parties have come to identifying a precedent for what Amy Berman Jackson did is just a single unpublished district court decision purporting to stop the president from removing two other government officials, which was in November 1980.
Yeah, I need to watch this too. It's fucking nasty from this morning when it was raining.
That case involved members of a temporary multi-member agency. It wasn't an official.
I gotta clean the inside too, though.
Who wields significant prosecutorial and investigative power and runs a big 129-person agency. So in response to all of this, Dellinger stresses that the courts have traditionally entertained petitions for writs of quo warranto to decide which two of the claimants is entitled to an office. So two people are competing for this. But it's unclear how Dellinger might be able to defend the district court's exercise of its equitable remedial authority by pointing to a distinct legal remedy he never sought. The district court never invoked the procedures for which he did not follow. So he's like, well, I could have office under this other theory. But he's like, okay, but you never brought up that theory. And it wasn't part of your original complaint. And there is a process for that other theory, which you did not meet. So this is the right analysis, clearly. I think the Supreme Court is ultimately going to come down to that conclusion. But they didn't want to jump ahead of the preliminary injunction. So that will be coming down the pike. We're going to wait for the Supreme Court to rule on that. And of course, we will cover it accordingly. So that is the Supreme Court's latest. The hearing will be taking place tomorrow. Of course, we're going to be here to cover the aftermath of that. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. Now we got some more updates here over from the AP.
I usually order them once a year from the UP.
Caroline Levitt is excited and happy about this. So let's talk about the news media. The AP got blown out. They were demanding access to whatever they wanted in the White House, even Trump's private bedroom. Just kidding. But they wanted access to the Oval Office. Of course, the AP is not conforming to the new name of the Gulf of America. They're dead naming it. They're not honoring our lived experience, identifying it as a proper body of water that we hug from Texas to Florida, enveloping the region with MAGA love. They refuse to honor that name, and it's offensive. And so they have been thrown out of various proceedings that they'd like to cover. So what they did is they sued. A federal judge came back down, issued this very short order, and it's fun. Here's what the AP said in their whiny request for a temporary restraining order. They said, let us back in. The AP and its attorneys, they moved.
Not a bunch. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long.
President Trump
I got to fix something for the new operations director out here and put up a couple cameras.
to Air Force One and other limited spaces.
Preliminary, just because
when those same spaces are made open to other
can't
members
trust
of the White
nurses.
House press pool. Now, as set
I
forth
got to
in
put some
greater
cameras in the
detail
med room and stuff.
the AP meets the requirement. Okay, they went
Nurses
through
are the biggest
the
fiends in the
requirements
world.
for a TRO.
We're running this
These
store real
four
quick,
elements we've talked a lot about here over the last several months. They think that they're likely to succeed on the merits because it violates their rights. It is a violation of their constitutional rights, which causes an irreparable injury. And then they mash these two elements into just one, but you balance
I'll be right
the
back.
equities
I'll grab
and
a new vape
public interest.
before they close.
You're hard. It's harming our First Amendment rights. We're going to win. It's an irreparable injury. The public wants us in there, and it's only fair that you shove us back into Trump's Oval Office, since we're shoving special counsels back in, we're shoving Merit Service Protection Board individuals back in. The DC judges are ordering Trump to make payments, as we'll cover in another segment. But it's nonstop. They say, so shove the AP back in, Judge. The AP respectfully requests our motion be granted and a restraining order requiring Trump to immediately rescind the ban to Oval, Air Force One, and other places. Make it happen, Judge. Signed by J. Ward Brown, working for Ballard Spahr out of Washington, D.C. and New York. So they sent that in, and the judge really didn't even care. The judge said, all right, listen here. Here's the order here. It's about a page and a half. The judge wrote this. The plaintiff, the Associated Press, moves for a temporary restraining order against the defendants, which are various White House officials, saying the AP asks the court to prevent the White House officials from, quote, limiting its, quote, access to the Oval Office, Air Force One, and other limited spaces. So, parties seeking a TRO must make a clear showing on these four factors, that when taken together, that they deserve relief. It's got to be likely that they'll win on the merits, that there will be irreparable harm, that they're going to balance the equities, and it's in the public interest, right? Now, the court has considered each of these four factors in light of your briefs and the arguments presented by each side. Guess what? Court finds that the AP has not made the requisite showing and will thus deny the motion. The court has already ordered expedited briefing on your separate request for a preliminary injunction, but you lose. So that's it. For these reasons, it's hereby ordered. Your motion for a temporary restraining order is hereby denied. Signed by Trevor McFadden in a very short opinion, perhaps one of the shortest opinions we've read on these issues, not even entertaining it. I would have liked to know what his rationale was, but the last I checked, there was no additional memo or anything that was published on the docket while we're here.
I don't think I've ever had a Hunt Brothers pizza. Sounds sketchy.
But I do not believe so. Let's take a quick look and see anything else on that particular docket. No, just a transcript. So they lose. Order denying the motion for the TRO. Very short order. AP loses, and rightfully so. Here is what Caroline Levitt had to say in the aftermath of that.
And the winning continues here at the White House every day. Today, a federal judge right here in Washington, D.C., denied the Associated Press's emergency request for a temporary restraining order to restore their privilege of returning to the White House press pool. And the judge's denial of the Associated Press's request reinforces what I said from the podium last week and what President Trump has been saying. Covering the American presidency in the most intimate and limited spaces in this White House, in the Oval Office, on the Air Force One, is a privilege. It is not a legal right. And we want all voices to have that opportunity. And that's why we've expanded the James S. Brady Briefing Room to invite truly legitimate, independent journalists, podcasters, and other media types into that room to cover this president with honesty and accuracy.
All right, guys.
And with real
I'll see you in a bit.
of what the
I'll probably use the
American
backup channel just on YouTube on the way home. But I got to make a couple stops. So, peace. Love you guys. See you later.
Shared this today. Speaking about those White House correspondents.